Live stream is on.
Hello, Echo World. It's in the Echo Chamber. My name is Gerry Fialka. It's January 17, 2021. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Clint Nicholas and Andrew Chrystall. Gentlemen, this is a McLuhanMashUp. We probe the hidden psychic effects of Marshall McLuhan and a lot more. Hey, Andrew, we'll start with you. Briefly, how did Marshall shape your behavior?
Well, Gerry, we'd have to open that up with just asking why you asked that question, of course, and what the hell are we doing here, Gerry? Like, I've got no idea what time it is, whether I should have, whether I've dressed appropriately. What are we even trying to achieve here? Like,
we're not trying to achieve anything. We're just here to have a good time. But it's basically we're trying to talk McLuhan probing on layperson terms. So we're not talking highbrow academia like media college lingo. So if I say to you, how studying Marshall McLuhan or continuing to study him shape your behavior, just basically, just off the top of your head.
Unlike Mr. Cooper, Dr. Cooper, who you had the other week, who was just the image of eloquence, I don't know that I can answer that one quickly. And possibly that my hesitation is how McLuhan fundamentally impacts, I guess, my living on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis, is the insertion of almost the habitual insertion of a gap or into everything. The always looking for a double take, always looking for the other possibility. And so, if anything, there's a slowing down and a distancing in there, which is, I guess, approximates some version of detachment.
Oh, I love that because it reminds me of Marshall debating Norman Mailer on YouTube. People can see it, and Marshall is slowed down. And Mailer is fed up. The gap is they can really see and feel that. So that was well done. Okay, Clint. How does or did Marshall shape your behavior?
Oh, I had to let's say recover. So he shaped my behavior as a role model for how to look and see what's happening in front of your face, which kind of mirrors, I think, what Andrew was saying. You know, what the hell is the setting that all this stuff is supposedly happening in where I'm at, where I'm interacting with other people, and they're taking something for granted, and I'm going, what the hell is it? Where the hell am I? Where the hell are they? Is actually the real important question. Socializing is where the hell are they? And that depends on, you know, that's like gaining a sort of theory of mind about where the heck everyone is when they all think they're talking to each other and they all presume they're sharing a common context, right? What's the common ground of what people think of more in psychological terms? Right. I'd like to think of it more in media and the negative, the ground, the Chrystall, the environmental. Where are we in a very literal, material sense? So that's how he affected me. Try and pay closer to that and to point it out as a means for communing.
Really well put. When the person who's not talking can mute, maybe we'll get rid of the echo. But Andrew, we throw it back in your court. This is good, and I really appreciate both of you being here. If Marshall was here, you could ask him a question. What would you say to Marshall right now? What question remains unresolved for you?
The main problem unresolved. I mean, the danger, Gerry, here is that we end up like I'm doing a biography, right? It's like you do a marvelous interview that gets people to reveal themselves to you and to another. And so I'm a little bit resistant, like in terms of like to offer that up, because I don't know that my patterns are of benefit to anybody else. Like I think if you were to be sympathetic to what Marshall McLuhan was doing, we'd use this time to explore something, right? As opposed to, or unless you're going to use my ignorance as a leaping off point, of which case, yeah, we can possibly do that and to explore. Although, unfortunately, my current interests don't really align with lay interests. They've all gone theological and metaphysical. And so I don't know that maybe looking at my ignorance in that respect is all that helpful to what we're doing here. I mean, we could talk about roads. We could talk about, roads and streets like you suggested we were going to do. We can talk about the pandemic or something like this. We could talk about this strange situation here that we're interacting.
Right, but that's good. What you said is perfect leading. You must have the ASP. Try muting Andrew, so that's the source of our echo. Just try it for a second. Because you can hear me. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, now we can't hear you. Okay. So now there's no echo. So when you're not talking, Andrew, if you mute, we'll get rid of the echo, I think. So that was good what you said, because it leads perfectly into it. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, because you could say pass and I don't know, but you're saying this not knowing or unlearning, which I that's really what McLuhan Mashup is how do we unlearn what we think we already know? So we come out fresh like a child, and it's sort of like taking steps backwards. Some great philosopher said you live life walking forwards, but in order to understand it, you got to walk backwards. So how do you unlearn? So Frank Zappa said stupidity is the building block of the universe. So if I ask stupid or strange questions, then people go, that's a stupid question. Well, that's the essence of question. I don't know. I don't know something, so I'll ask. McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I've said it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I've written it. And I go, I don't know what I think until I ask somebody smart like Andrew or Clinton. Now you're doing the perfect thing, Andrew. You're saying, whoa, I don't know if I can participate in it. That's why the pinnacle of Paulo's 12-hour McLuhan thing was Andrew saying, dude, when do you go to the bathroom? That was so down to earth and real. That's why me and Clinton said that was the greatest moment in 12 hours, better than Arthur Croker and everybody. But yeah. So Clinton, let's have you answer that or attempt to react to that question, and then we'll go, because Andrew set it up perfect for the path of this discussion with his last statement. So you don't have to apologize for what you're saying, Andrew. That was perfect lead in to our next line. So Clinton should be given the chance to respond to that. If Marshall was here, what question is unresolved for you? What would you ask him, Clinton?
Why he ignored microcomputers for the last 3 years of his life as they were exploding as a medium. But hey, he was an old dude and had lots going on, and I guess no one bought him a Commodore or something, or an Apple II. Right. That would have been interesting. But anyways, that's just a little bit of janitorial work cleaning up the end of his career, really. I mean, I wish we all got the holograms instead. What are you going to do?
Right. So that was
maybe
good.
We did. Maybe we did.
Now, well, let's try this, Andrew. This is the word mystery. Okay, so I think it's a word that I explore because of the poet Auden said that the mystery of art, he didn't say it exact, but paraphrasing, the mystery of art is that we don't know if it activates or pacifies us. Now, we want to believe, oh, art is good and it activates you. Now, the mystery is the key word there for me right now to explore. The mystery of art. So we could say the mystery of TikTok, the mystery of social media, the mystery of guitars is we don't know if it activates or pacifies us. Andrew, you have a guitar in back of you. You can use it as therapy and you just strum it and calms your nerves and you feel good, or it activates you. I'm going to go out and make soundtracks and get paid and be a working musician. So you don't know if the guitar activates you or pacifies you, though you could articulate your motives for having it right there. You know, next to your skeleton is a guitar. That is beautiful. That's the essence of life right there. So mystery is a 14th century word. It comes from secret rite, religious truth, hidden spiritual significance. But dig the real source of the word mystery is mute. M-U-T-E. This is what the etymology dudes say, that it could be. You know, they say like source unknown. We don't know where this word came from. It could be mute. And what's mute mean? To shut, to close. It might refer to, Andrew, check this out, the lips. To close your lips or shut your eyes wide shut. Kubrick. So it is going right to the essence of McLuhan, the senses. What do we invent? So what does mystery enhance or intensify for you, Andrew?
Oh, don't forget to unmute.
You got to unmute. Still muted. Still.
You did too good a job.
Oh, you mean if you do?
Let's see, in the software, let me see if I got.
No, but he might be. Are you staying muted?
Yeah, it's not in the web app where you're muted. It's somewhere between your microphone and your OS.
I think he's. No, it's
Negative.
still muted. But see, this is the beauty of the Zoom, is that I thought your answer was you muting yourself.
No regrets.
The mystery of the mystery enhances or intensifies the mute.
Mystery enhances. Negative. We got. You're making beautiful music, but it's not for us. Sorry. Wow. Actually, this is terrible. Hold on. Let me make sure I can't. Here. Why don't you quit the stream and come back in? We can keep the masses entertained. Oh, there it is. I hear me. So you're on.
You can hear me?
Yay! That was.
Hey,
really
I'm actually inclined to go with you, Gerry, and just say, hey, that was my answer there. Like, that's entirely fitting, right? Really. So, like, clearly the media itself has determined that was what the answer should be. So, I'm going to go with it. I'm going to merge with it.
And the beauty is, it is still there. Okay, don't mute anymore. Okay, Clinton, what is mystery enhancement?
Oh no! Please do mute, but just don't forget how you did it. I'm kidding. Sorry. What does the what enhancify?
What is mystery enhance?
Oh, the ignorance to be explored. I mean,
The ignorant to what was the last part?
the ignorance to be explored. Communication, you can talk to people about what they know, but really what you're trying to figure out is what they don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Andrew, what is ignorant render obsolete? I mean, no, so what is mystery render obsolete?
Well, how do you get away with like not answering that, Gerry? Like how is it?
Yeah.
You get to answer these questions. Like, come on.
No, you're right. I don't answer because I talk too much, but when someone requests, I will answer. Thank you. So mystery enhances. It's a little too blatant secret, so it's not known. It's what you brought up. It mystery enhances this need to not know, because we're all know. We think we know everything. We're just reading stuff to reinforce what we think we already know. And yeah, that's how I would leave it at. Reinforce not knowing. That's what mystery is.
It's an interesting line of inquiry, right? Because, or at least Eric McLuhan always emphasized the point that tetrads were never to apply to that which was not man-made. And so it's interesting when you're talking about mystery, because you're already straying into a realm which is generally reserved for the sacred, right? And so by definition is not man-made, because it has some relationship to a transcendent divine. So it's odd to be pushing in this direction, Gerry. To actually to run a tetrad on mystery is odd.
No, it's not odd. You're actually right. You're breaking the rule. If you read the back of the book about the lost tetrad, the tetrads are a combination of poetry and hieroglyphics. And whenever we tackle a lot of subjects that are debatable whether they're invented, because we invented the word mystery. So we're doing it on the word mystery. And I agree that's a debatable thing, because you can't do a tetrad on a tree, but you can do it on wood and say we took it out of a tree and made boards. So you can do a tetrad on lumber, but you can't really do a tetrad on trees. So I totally agree.
The way I would approach it was that there's lots of mystification, which is wholly human-made by people who would mess with other people's heads for exaction of power. So in that regard, that's mystery as an artifact. So maybe
right. So I mean, what you can do, Andrew, no, you could say, I don't know, I think it's I pass, or I won't do this because it's not man-made. It's not human-made. That's totally legit. But if you say, what is mystery render obsolete? Off the top of your head, what would you say?
What does mystery render obsolete? And I'm just thinking about which. So my other approach is, and I think this is consistent with McLuhan's pattern of thinking, is not talking about mystery in the abstract. I mean, what mystery are we talking about here, right? Are we talking to me as the grand ascendant Western dragon of Eastern mysticism, initiated into the rites of Ulysses of the such and such, or is it? Am I making something else up? Or are we talking about Christian mystery? Are we talking about an Orthodox Catholic understanding, or in another religious system? So specifically, like all mystery is, there's not just kind of mystery. There's mystery about something.
This is what we also do in Tetrad sessions. Is we say you put it into the context you want.
That I want, or
Yeah.
the audience wants. What does the
No.
so-
We say the users of content is each person can put it into the context they want. But
right?
you say, as Andrew, I put the word mystery into this context. You can explain it, or you can say your answer, and then we have to wade through the puzzle and figure out which mystery he's doing it on.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then that becomes really easy. Then, like for me, it's simple. It's like, what does the mystery obsolesce? Well, it's monotheism, right? So, because the central mystery is the triune nature of God, right? And so, what is obsolesced automatically is monotheism, or on the flip side, a pantheism or some variation thereof.
In lay people's terms, what monotheism and pantheism mean?
Like a one God, singular.
One God.
So it would be the notion of so an Orthodox Catholic understanding would be that's the nature of the incarnation. You have a situation where the nature of God as triune is revealed, which obsolesces the former monotheistic understanding of the Jewish people of the day, but also obsolesced the syncretism, which is like the crazy combiningness of the Roman Empire.
Right. That was good. Perfect. Okay, Clint, what is the mystery red drop believer display?
Sticking with my definition, where mystery is a something being mystified, it would just obsolesce honesty or a shared sense of awe at the mystery, perhaps that would be more naturally occurring in our ignorant state.
So I would say it renders obsolete science, but let's do a tangent question. We'll start with you, Andrew. Is honesty innate or invented? Is it more innate or is it more invented? Honesty.
Sorry, what is the word, Gerry? I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Honesty, HONESTY.
Yeah, honesty. Yeah, is it
more innate or more invented?
Innate or invented? Honesty is an odd notion, eh? I guess we'd have to sort of go over, run over at different levels, right? You're looking at like a multi-leveled understanding. So if we accept that there's the notion of like a multiple-bodied anthropology, as in we as humans are composite, that we're made up of multiple different things, and maybe at root there's some notion of some wild organic-y kind of body that we never really fully have access to. The honesty of that body is when it shits, farts, pisses, when it laughs, when it shows its teeth, when it sneezes. Like there is an honesty in the wild body which is always and everywhere unrestrained, but I mean it can be domesticated to some degree. But then what does honesty mean when we're talking at language? Are we talking about honesty in terms of like a matching way of like some matching notion of truth, i.e. I am responding in such a way that matches exactly to some other pre-existent thing? Probably no. Then honesty sort of breaks down under those terms. But we need honesty would be something along the lines of remaking with integrity. This notion of sort of going beyond a remediation, but to recreate and transpose a new matter in such a way that is resonant and integral to that which we're being honest to. Right. I completely failed at being unacademic. It's just I don't have ready to hand definitions here, Gerry. I'm making stuff up as I go. I was just working through the process, and I don't think there was anything specialist in what I did there. I was just trying to showcase a process of thought.
Andrew, you're doing great. You're answering questions with questions, and you're pondering, and that's what we're all about. We're not here to make statements and say, even though I'm asking questions, I'm not really after answers. I'm after new questions, and new metaphors. So that was perfect. Yeah. So, Clint, is honesty more innate or more invented?
It inherits its invented nature from the fact that we invent our perception to begin with, to then be honest about. It's as invented as we are, and by invented we just mean humans have ownership over their own self-creation and their own capacity for perception of whatever it is that they're honest about.
Why are we interested in honesty, Gerry? Why do we care?
Because what happens is, in the midst of doing a tetrad, it brings up new topics, so we can go on tangents. So it's sort of practice. So I would usually take one answer from each round, and I'll just go Robin. Is this more innate or more invented? And the people in our group crack up, they laugh. So if I get people to laugh at the bullshitty intellectual discussion, that's like one of our leaders said, "Stop laughing, you're learning."
Yeah.
So if I can get you guys to laugh, but I mean, I don't have any except that I'm a student and I'm asking stupid questions. So I mean, they get because I think McLuhan came up with 4 questions, and he wants 5. And he wants what is mystery satire? So whatever. So I'm not trying to hold to. This is what the tetrad is. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4, but that's how it appears. That we're going to now ask you, Andrew. And the great thing about this is we get no echo when you talk. So you're the only one people will understand. And you're really doing great. And I love having you here. So the next question is, and I guess John Cage said it best. I would say to all your questions, that's a very good question, Andrew. I don't want to ruin it. So the next question, Andrew, is what is mystery retreat?
Okay, so we're sticking with sort of some fairly simple orthodoxy, I guess. It was retrieve the dialogue, the Adamic dialogue. This notion, right, of that it's not quite set in stone.
Everything's in flux. It's always changing. When we invented words, we fucked everything up because then we set everything in stone. It's called splitterism. It split the brain. We got printed words. You put these words on paper. They're set in stone. And then you put an S on splitterism, and you put a funny sign in it. That's the woman who taught McLuhan the goddess culture, Mary Jane Schultz. She also advised Ivan Illich, Naylor, and a couple other. So, Clinton, what is mystery retreat?
The earlier stage of ignorance. Again, sticking with my artificial mystery. So whoever's designing Plato's cave is designing the real, actual cave-dwelling cave for the person whom they're ensnaring within this mystified state.
Very good. I would say the great Andrew has forced me to answer. And I'm saving to his note that Sun Ross says it's his story, it's not my story. So words evoke more. So mystery is my story. So if you take the word mystery and turn it into my story, it retreats individualism. And they each person can believe in their own God. Or they can believe in God. And they can, go along with their life, do whatever they want in their inner world. That's what we're going to talk about a little. We'll get the streets and roads. The inner world is outed by poetry. So if Marshall's saying that tetrads are poetry, we're writing haikus. How do we out that inner world? Well, I pray to God. I have a vision in my head. I have some sort of picture who I'm praying to, because I was raised a Roman Catholic, and I think he looked like a hippie with a beard. Sorry, that's what I imagine. And so if that works for me, there's no rule. Oh, you can't pray to that guy. You got to pray to this guy. So anybody can, their story, it's their individual thing they can do in their own, inside their own brain. So if you take mystery, flip it to an extreme, Andrew, what could it have been?
It would be, staying on the same vein, would be if we started with the enhancement of the triune, which is fundamentally about relationship. The reverse would be division, or a separation of creation and creator, so that there's a distinct gap, and which in itself is quite a revolutionary understanding that that man or personhood is distinct from and fundamentally separate from the creator.
Really good. So we can't separate that, but we want to. What caused us to want to say, oh, that guy made me. Where did you come from? Well, I came from my mom and dad. Well, who made them? And then who gave them the ability to make you? That's a really good answer. Okay, Clinton, what does mystery flip into?
The feral state. Someone is so mystified they're completely out of the game so far as human communing and civilization is a game. It's a rather bleak answer.
That's fine. I'm for any kind of answer, and don't want to answer. I'm fine for that. But I would say, if we press mystery to an extreme, it flips into a nativity set. So we just have the Christmas time where people set up these little statues of the nativity. And I would like to carry on with this thing of like what Andrew wrote in his paper, and that really touched me, and it's understanding advertising. And these creative types were in the ad bit. And I would reiterate Frank Baum, who wrote Wizard of Oz or Wizard of Oz, was in the ad bit. The gentleman who created the Art Nouveau was in the ad bit. So, people think Art Nouveau is really great art, but indeed he also had this sense of what advertising is, which is basically poetry. People don't realize that. And Andy Warhol, David Tennant, Frank Zappa were all in ad world. They were influential artists, playwrights, musicians who started writing advertising. So I think understanding advertising is an important thing because it's something most of us want to avoid. I don't pay attention. It's pollution to me. And in essence, Marshall wrote his first book saying we should pay attention to this because they're using techniques that we could use to educate people. That's all you have to do is read the intro to understand. What's the name of that book? Mechanical Bride. So here's what I'd like you to suss out if you could. Andrew, this is a great poet. He comes out of Eastern philosophy, and he also is a beat icon. His name is Gerry, and he said that poetry. Let me see if I get this exactly right. Sheesh. I'm not going to get it exactly right.
Perfect, Gerry. Make it. It's going to be way better if you make it up. Like,
it is going to be.
Let's not aim for fidelity.
Yeah, and it goes like this. My task as a poet entails seeing the world without language and then bringing that thing into language. So we want in my own words, go into the not knowing, and then we put the not knowing into more not knowing, or something like that. So it's like, I mean, your study of advertising, Andrew, is this similar? You're seeing the world without language, then bringing that into language.
Yeah. Sorry. What was the question or the
well? If you can discuss what Gerry said, it's seeing the world without language, then bringing that into language.
Yeah, I get. To me, that sounds just like very I mean, it's the Joycean late radical modernists' poetic credo, is it not? You know, just to forge in the smithy of my soul, the what is it? The
unmade conscious of my race.
Boom. That's another way of saying exactly the same thing. You got Yeats, the circus animals' desertion, the whole notion that that it's fundamentally about retracing the drama of cognition and arresting that. And so I guess in McLuhanese you'd say, well, what he does, he retreats and he attends to the dance of nonverbal ESP, and then goes through each level, like transposing that firstly into speech, the shaping of air with the mouth, and then through another layer of arrest. What does it mean when you take that one step further into some arrested and frozen words, and do that then in light of all the literature that ever was? You know, the notion of Eliot's notion that that it all is just one order. So yeah, it's a very, very classic 20th century statement. And I guess it does. If we follow McLuhan, it underpins all arts and sciences of during the electric age. It is the natural outgrowth and posture of mind under electric conditions.
Right. And then you said, I'm not sure if you said this or more, that the traditional means of providing immunization against creative revolution. What the heck does that mean?
Yeah, it's just like that's It's Marshall, although I guess in my own writing practice, because I'm effectively uneducated, I've been, how would you say, this will sound really cliched, but trying to learn to write by writing in my master's voice, right? And so all of my own writing has been in that. And so there's a conscious decision to blur at times and to use language in ways that I think is coherent and sympathetic with what he was trying to do to some degree. But let's talk about advertising now is great, eh? It's like, would McLuhan have said that COVID is a war for the advertising dollar, or is it's like COVID versus Trump battling for the advertising dollar? How much bad news do we actually need to sort of sell advertising these days and keep the whole broadcasting economy afloat?
Oh, yeah, great question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, if the good news is actually, if there's diminishing returns in how much good is in the good news, then maybe you have to drive people into watching it out of escapism rather than just being able to leave it in as the sweetener on the actual news. Well, okay, so what I'm saying is, forgive me for not saying this, for laying this out. If commercials are the good news, and so a news broadcast has to be the bad news so that commercials can provide the catharsis after learning all the horrible shit that's going on today. Well, I don't know. I don't even watch TV, but I might if I really had to distract myself. So, in that regard, when every other option for leisure is taken away, then what else are you gonna do but to hang out with your little computer screen and talk to peeps, and then right? So that's all advertising, because every communication platform is fused with all of our favorite brands and hamburger joints as friends, as part of the conversation to begin with.
Hey, don't worry about it, Clinton. It's keeping millions of us alive, if not billions.
True.
So,
True.
Don't get all uptight and puritanical about it, eh?
Man. I was puritanical about it for 20 years. You want to flip me into an optimist now? Like,
No, it's not about being optimist. It's just saying it's just like abandon the anti-theatrical prejudice. It's just like that, that grimacing sore on the sort of Anglo sensibility.
Oh, well, perhaps that's yeah. Okay, fine. Next question, Gerry.
The show's got to go on.
That was
Don't
good.
make the show go on. Don't let the show go on, baby.
Yeah, Clint doesn't watch TV but we lived in a TV world, and we live under secondhand smoke. So we still get the reverberations of the TV world. If we don't even watch TV, you see the world. So if we're living in a trance world, do we talk to each other in the dream language? This is like Brecht, the playwright said, I don't want art that puts you in a trance, I want art that activates you. That's a value judgment. Can art that puts you in a trance still be a valuable experience?
Yeah, nobody has done this better than Bob Dobbs, like bar none. Like nobody has talked this drama through in a better way, in terms of where he's flipped it, he played with it. He says we've got to, instead of like wake you up to put you to sleep, to wake you, like actually just exploring the oscillation. Today my phone, my sort of computer, my pet, it beeps at me every whatever. Like in one sense I'm never more awake. I actually need to like calm right on down before I can actually then supposedly wake up to be able to understand something like this. So this whole notion of waking and sleeping, or activating and being passive, there's figure ground relationships that need to be played through and unearthed. We can't do it in terms of a simple binary here at all. And it's really interesting because it evokes a whole lot of values associated with that. It's like this notion of that's just escapism. Well, what are you escaping from? Is it a problem to be escaping from it, or are we celebrating the fact that we should be high and have altered states all the time, or actually are we? What is the foundation for some notion that we should be sober and attentive and in a dark room and praying our rosary and possibly flagellating ourselves or something like that? I don't know. Waking and sleeping is a pretty complex stuff, Gerry.
You read my mind, Andrew. I was about to ask how the pot is in New Zealand.
I don't know. I'm stone cold sober, Clinton.
Right.
I'm a family man.
When you're walking down the street, you're catching whiffs from every doorway like you do up here in Canada?
No, it's not like... There are a lot of sensible relations between New Zealand and Canada, but no, we haven't gone quite that far.
Yeah, it's funny because I was perma-stoned for maybe like 7 or 8 years, right? And then that just got too much, and then sobriety was welcome relief. And then slowly it's like two different halves that end up merging together and reasoning with one another. It's very much, I would have a different, right? The different mindsets are definitely very easily way to flip back and forth from two completely different perspectives and sets of values and judgments and anticipations and levels of optimism or pessimism, such where it's right. So it's really weird because people who I know who are perma-stoned, they're nobody when they're sober because they just haven't worked at it. And I think it's the same way as people who are online all the time and just ignored or eschewed the hard work of socializing themselves. Because they're too afraid to talk to the pizza delivery place over the phone, so they'll use the app instead, kind of stuff, right? Like people are, as you were talking earlier, if we're complexes of multiple bodies which have not integrated or failed to, so it's just one more element that comes to mind in the larger discussion.
Well, I used to call it herbal knowledge. Now I call it herbal ignorance, but it's the question of people finding their groove and pursuing it. And who am I to tell anyone what to do unless it harms me? So do no harm is what one friend said when the Capitol event happened. And then I read Jeremy Bentham in Introduction to the Principles of Moral and Legislation. Nature has placed humankind under the governance of two sovereign masters, pain and pleasure. It is for them alone to point out what we ought to do, as well as to determine what we shall do. Of course, it's a dichotomy, but I often ask people, what do you pursue more, happiness or meaning?
Yeah, no. Mr. Cooper gave us, Dr. Cooper there gave us the classical distinction, right? Like he gave a nice... Okay, so I think traditionally it's the question is pitched in terms of thinking about hedonic happiness, the sensations or whatever they are, and I think it's eudaimonic happiness. And forgive my Greek, basically I don't have any, and because I live in New Zealand, I don't get to talk to anybody, so I don't actually know how to pronounce these words. And so that which would be the happiness derived through pursuit of purpose or something like this. You could probably throw in further and other distinctions in there, but that you can derive significant benefit, pleasures, happiness from eudaimonic pursuits. I would say the latter definitely outweighs the former, although
you're saying purpose is where it's at.
Purpose is where it's at.
Yeah.
And it might even make you happy.
I think I like if we're going to stay with Greek words. I think is that ataraxis, the notion of peace is, or some notion of peace is a higher than happiness.
So is that karma? If you're going to pursue purpose, it seems that your karma is going to hit you better.
Karma. I don't know, Gerry. I don't know about karma. That's those Indian Vedic philosophers. They had so many more terms. Is like once upon a time I went on a path, sort of contemplating learning Sanskrit and sort of making my way through English translations of Vedic scriptures and this, that, and the other. And I came away with the sort of notion that where Westerners see a square for, some of these Vedic thinkers, they're seeing 8s, 12s, and far more complex structures. And so I guess I know my limits, and I'm not really in a position to talk about karma.
It was interesting. Alan Watts told me this morning on the radio that karma is from this misunderstood word called nirvana. People say nirvana means ecstasy or dreaming, bliss. And really nirvana, as well as he could interpret the etymology of the word, was the state of being awake, to blow out your breath, because you can't hold it in. You have to blow it out. So breathing is like, I have purpose. I've got to take in the breath to live. But indeed, you have to blow it out. So we do self-sabotage. Go ahead.
I happen to be an expert on secular rationalizations and extreme reductions of advanced mystical concepts. So I'm quite secure in saying that karma is just like your reputation, and what comes around goes around, man. Like, don't overthink it.
Yeah. It's like giving the attempt to clutch. You're clutching life. You want to, grab it, and you can't.
All right, so I'll do my friend a solid, who's actually talked about this a lot and lived in India studying this stuff for a decade. Karma accrues. Karmas accrue within you, and they just build up and they shape they end up shaping it and distorting, or blessing, perhaps, at least. Like, I'm not going to say whether the distortions are in like a good or bad sense, but yeah, karma specifically accrue, which is why I easily relate to them in my own ideas as reputation, because those accrue in the same way, but they're projective or whatnot.
We're talking, gentlemen, we're talking about choosing a path in a way. We've chosen, we're media ecologists, we've chosen to be on this Zoom at this hour together. I'm grateful. But this is like flaneurism, is where you wander aimlessly. You don't have a purpose, or you don't have a destination. Why do humans have to have a destination? The journey is more important. Why do we have to have a purpose? Can't we just wander aimlessly? So going into that road or street motif we earlier on proposed, it's interesting because is the journey more important than the destination? That's a cliche. That's true. But then the flaneurs, just in Paris in the 20s, said, hey, I can just influence Walter Benjamin and James Joyce and and wander aimlessly.
There was a kids' cartoon in the 90s, voiced by Howie Mandel, called Bobby's World. Bobby was this little tyke on a tricycle who was always being fooled by his manipulative older siblings. And one time they tricked little Bobby. Don't you know Bobby? Anyway, they tricked Bobby into thinking that the plane that they were going to take their vacation on had pedals under all the seats. And the airplanes worked by everyone on the plane all pedaling to keep the plane in the sky. And Bobby started having nightmares when they left for their vacation the next day. His legs were going to be too short, and he wouldn't be able to pedal the airplane. And that the captain would come on and be like, "Attention passengers, someone's not pedaling the airplane, and we're going into a steep nosedive." And the whole plane crashed because Bobby couldn't reach the pedals to keep the plane in the air. So it's kind of one of my young formative archetypal ideas of what it means when too many people wander and don't have a goal, and so far as allowing entropy to set in as in a larger sociological sense.
Andrew,
Yeah, I mean,
okay,
so like before Eric McLuhan passed away, he recommended a whole stack of stuff. Actually, for about, let's just say 7 years before he died, he'd been probably the major architect of my reading, and he had given me a lot of stuff to read, follow up on, this, that, and the other thing. It was quite cool. It was just part of a conversation that had been going on for a while. But he recommended this guy, Richard Lanham. And it's Lanham was this really cool cat, right? Because he was a composition professor at the UCLA, and the way he writes is this beautiful, easy, accessible way, but it's just jam packed with just goodies upon goodies. And he starts off, like, I read everything he wrote. And he starts off, and he's really antithetic to McLuhan early on in his days. But at the end of it all, he's read his way back to the classic trivium, and he's just going, hold on a second. Not only has this guy gone way further than I have, but he's done it down the same path, and so he ends up in this really interesting place. But anyway, one of the themes that he deals with really well is this oscillation in terms of the Western consciousness between two extremes, i.e. between you could say between purpose and hedonic pleasure, or something like this. I mean, he looks at it, he discusses it in terms of light on versus light through, and then he does another one in terms of like the rhetoricians versus the philosophers, and this notion of he paints a picture of the rhetoricians as being these figures that, because there's always more to say, they could always elongate the process, right? They could be these flaneur type figures, not exactly flaneurs, but to the degree that there could always be new words to say, new stories, new somethings. They didn't need a destination as such, because it could just be a perpetual journey as such. And then I guess you've got the way that he presents the philosophical tradition, which would be the dialecticians, if we were to use McLuhan's terminology, as being very much destination focused. And so where he ends up is he says, well, the greatest figures in the Western tradition are those people that have both include that fundamental tension and oscillation, and do not try and reconcile it. And that becomes a really interesting key, because then all of a sudden we can look at McLuhan, right? Marshall McLuhan, The Ancient Quarrel of Modern America. He included that fundamental quarrel, or that tension. He doesn't. People think, oh, he just comes down on the side of the grammarians, but that's not actually true. That's not a correct reading of McLuhan. McLuhan actually includes the fullness of the quarrel and the oscillation between. Another interesting figure that does it is that I've discovered is going around and seeing Dostoevsky. He does it. If you look at the various works. So I guess that's a way of coming at this notion of either journey or destination, right? And so, I don't know, did I add something there, Gerry? Did that spawn some ideas in you?
That was beautiful, because one thing Bob taught me, which I always like to reiterate, he said that when Marshall said that it was the message, people would go, "You're saying it's more important you're watching TV than what's the content." And he was like, "No." Marshall knew that they were both equally important, but because people were so focused on the content, he said, "I'm going to focus and push the form more." So everybody gets the media message wrong because they say, "Marshall said, no, more content is not important." Is that correct, Andrew?
I mean, okay, correct or honest, as you've been using the terms. I don't really know. I think another one of those problems we have when reading McLuhan is we treat him as some perennial philosopher, as opposed to actually writing for the moment. And I think he really struggled to the degree that books always took a little bit too long to write, and you had to do all this other checking and stuff to get them out. He's cheering up and straightening out the audience of his day. Okay, and so would he say something totally different now if he read the situation differently? Absolutely, you'd abandon it entirely. But I mean, there is elements of, and I guess I wouldn't want to put words into Bob's mouth, but if Bob pushes you back into considering that's the circuitry of that phrase, then job done, right? Instead of just like, oh, medium is a message, oh, that's form content thing, and with this, that, and the other thing. But then if you go back in, then you start to see, well, hey, I've encountered that in text, and hold on, wasn't it writing or text that actually creates this fundamental distinction between form and content? There's like in a oral society, there is no distinction between form and content, right? And so the medium and the message, as we encounter it in writing, becomes quite an aggressive and interesting probe about the nature of writing and cognition itself.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, it creates labyrinths. Okay, so here's what I'll say. You can wander, but you should always be trying to drop breadcrumbs. And
who's you and who's dropping breadcrumbs, Clinton?
You're the artist.
Are we in a forest here, or what's our genre?
You're Ariadne dropping her golden breadcrumbs on the way to the center of the Witch's Labyrinth, obviously.
Obviously. Disregarding all the other labyrinths in the whole Western canon. Okay,
okay. Well, it's also The Shining, and Jack is running after you with an axe. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson. But so, anyways, the idea is to go, try to turn other people's life journeys as it turns out they have lived it, and consider whether or not you're going to make them your checkpoints on the circuits that you're wandering around. Almost looking for some sort of overlap, right?
I didn't get the who did what to whom to what effect stuff going on there. Like who was the person in the labyrinth? What time was it?
All right,
why were they there?
A deluso schizoid subject is creating art, and then they
when where
1979.
Yes,
up until their unfortunate passing in 1994.
Yeah.
So you go see where they ended up. And then you go look at the changes they went through, and you're like, and if you figure out what the heck they actually did, you get an idea of the landscape they were living in. It might give you some hints in your own wandering as to setting some actual checkpoints or goals and or recreating a new some form of direction or levels of ritual initiation or something. I don't know. Where's that effect? Jerry, you get all that?
So that was a I loved it, and it reminded me of Duchamp saying that I'm going to contradict myself so I don't conform to my own ideas. That's a real cute saying. I love Duchamp because I'm a hypocrite myself. But effects precede causes, Andrew, and on streets and roads, I learned from McLuhan somehow that women their bicycles and went outside the city to go see nature, then those bicycle paths became the roads for the cars. So that was effects precede causes. Okay, so I learned that Farnsworth looked at the wheat in his field, and it formed this mosaic writing, which became electronic mosaic of TV screens. If you believe, Farnsworth invented the TV. So Surratt actually invented or helped invent the mosaic way of painting and prepared us for TV. Now, Andrew, how in the heck is everything you've told us tonight, which has been enlightening to me, and I'm grateful, how can you explain to the layperson effects precede causes? It sounds like some hocus pocus.
It's an interesting phrase, and we can sort of go at it in a number of different ways. The long way would be read the equivalents of that phrase in somebody like Gilson or Maritain. And so the doctrine of effects precede causes is a really interesting, how would you call it? Condensation of a particular argument against various, how would you call it? Defective strains of modernist thinking. And so you can come at it in terms of Catholic apologetics and thinking about it that way. The other way would be, okay, so let's look at maybe what you said. Surratt prepared us for television. Okay, and I think okay, let's be a little bit more ambitious here. No, Surratt invented television. Okay, yeah. It's quite a different thing. So like television was invented prior to its realization in terms of a piece of glass, a projecting ray gun, this, and an architecture. And so if you're understanding that at a formal level, television pre-existed its realization in a material shape, that becomes interesting. And so McLuhan's understanding of medium, or the way that he discusses media or medium, he's really closely attuned to the ultimate realization in terms of materiality. And sometimes he traces from materiality to form, but he often traces from formal organizing principles or processes back as preceding their realization in terms of material form. So although that didn't address it directly, it's kind of interesting. Like if you give people this notion that, TV existed before they had a TV, then that's interesting.
I say that constantly. Hold on one second. I say that constantly, that McLuhan invented Zoom. Excuse me, that Joyce invented Zoom disguised it as a book. Finnegan's Wake. And they go, that's stupid. They don't get that. And you're saying, Surratt invented TV and disguised it as pain. So
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's why Don Thiel spent his whole life writing effectively the prehistory of cyberspace, being a Joycean. And McLuhan the same. He spent his whole life thinking about these things.
Yeah. And so Clinton, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We also have to realize the nature of technology and understanding a medium. The way McLuhan understood the TV was a series of dots being illuminated, the phosphors on the inside of the tube, right? But what if instead he had focused on the luminance chrominance color compression model, which puts the picture into the airwaves? So we all learned that light is made up of red, green, and blue, but those aren't the three channels. that is in the radio wave that goes to your color television, because then black and white television wouldn't work. A black and white television only has one gun. So there are three elements of picture image, three waveforms all kind of bundled together on an analog radio wave. The first one is black and white. It's called luminance. It just controls the darkness of the signal. And then R, G, and B are all sort of subtracted from that and averaged in the other two signals. And then those two signals modulate to pick the red, green, and blue phosphors on a color TV, but a black and white TV ignores that signal. So
now we're talking about media ecology, like because you're talking about. So you're thinking that that TV is, maybe we could talk about TV in terms of that. But if we're saying what you're talking about, in my mind, would be you're talking about the realization of that which we call TV, but we're talking about TV hybridizing with radio. Right, so already it's material realization is a hybrid form. Okay, and so okay, yeah, sure, McLuhan could easily have written about, or anybody, like, I don't want to lionize McLuhan. I mean, he's just as flawed as the rest of us, but the path is there. Like, understanding media could have been 133 chapters long, or as opposed to just 33, right? It's you just got to present the broad outlines. He's in the business of making stuff accessible to people and usable, right? Or making material available to them so that they might live peacefully and re-engage with an understanding of authority, and commune with their creator, and all this, have peace, and all this, that, and the other thing. But you don't want to just go down into the micro little detail and talk about this version, because then we'd be talking about then television 1.0, television 2.0, 3.0, and by the 1950 we'd be up to television 15.0, and people would be going, where do you stop? What's the essential information?
Well, the essential information is what's going on today. You need perception of our machines today, because that's one thing that you're going to be able to point to someone.
Essential information, and is it machines plural or is it machines singular? I mean, this is an interesting tension in McLuhan's work. Is technology plural or singular?
Our entire artifice, as we've inherited it as an environment, everything that can be defined as not nature, that came out of first through some cognitive, creative invention process. This is where I think Siegfried Gideon is overlooked as trying to point out the anonymous history of the guy bent over, his workspace, designing the thing now that everyone uses, right, for computers. I really hate that Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, mostly Steve Jobs, are the subject of limitless, endless remakes of docudramas and biopics that show the world where the world came from. And it's a total cover-up of all the actual important nerds who were forgotten because their product died or got bought out, right? You can't understand your media if you don't know where it came from, and no one understands anything about where the contemporary media came from. And I mean, maybe it's just... But yes, the artifice as a whole, that's true for forks and guns and germs. Well, not germs, obviously, but steel and you, right, everything we created and as an inherited environment is one big artifice. That's where I'd agree with you, if that's what you're suggesting.
Yeah, and in terms of path forward, right? Are we going to pursue the path of the multitudinous detail? Are we going to get locked down in terms of discussing protocols, change of protocols, and et cetera, how wires are made? Or are we going to pursue the path of luminosity, right? This notion of that we can get light through the situation and some insight and understanding. And then the other question would be, and then how much time do we actually have? And so if we're talking to the layperson, right, we're already way in excess what the layperson would regard as an acceptable amount of time to spend here. So like, if attention spans are like really that short, what's the shortest, fastest, most meaningful way that you can communicate essential detail, right? And it's going to be a myth. It's going to be quick. It's going to be aphoristic, and it's going to be largely an impossible task that may succeed.
That's the yes. That's what has been demonstrated to at least compete with advertisement for the attention. You're fighting an uphill battle when attention is the scarce commodity.
Yeah, and in the name of what? In the name of what are you facing? You know, are you doing battle with this big with Typhon, right? Like, what? Why would you? Like, hey, it's like to say young kids going to get more girls or boys if they've got the right shoes. Like, and in the name of what would you like rip them out of that? It's almost downright unethical to give somebody a so-called critical instruction if the best they can be is like selling cheeseburgers, right? You know, you've just like, oh, here's your existential crisis. That's just downright unethical.
I see. You don't want to. Well, the human scale, an appreciation of the human scale, appreciation of their size in relation to something that's measurable and achievable, not some Carl Sagan cosmos bullshit. You know, you don't want to give people a sense of belonging in a world which is the whole universe, because that's impossible for it. They just get stoned and think about it all day and get lost in escapism, right? You've got to give people awareness of their human scale, embodied size in relation to something huge that we're all a part of, that isn't also overwhelming or constricting. So
and what's your privileged stance on which you are like have the knowledge and the holder of understanding of what human scale is, right? You know, on what's the foundation for your elite, and what's the, you know, what are the grounds for your authority?
Well, right now the grounds for the authority is getting the attention by any means necessary. If I had to develop a heuristic,
but I mean everybody's doing that, right? Everybody's their own pope. Everybody's getting everybody else's attention. That's the drama of our time, Clinton. And you just there with a beard and your oracle chair, like saying, "No, my brand is better. Read my encyclical." It's no advertising for you, young child.
Well, no, you got to learn. Yes, you have to study. It's the thing. I've watched enough television. I still see it. Right, that's getting through it, not escaping it. Sorry,
you gotta have a good reason. Like let's talk here the language of the streets here, Clinton. You'd have to have a pretty good reason to tell kids that actually shouldering some existential crisis where they're all alone in the world, they're going to die, and there's a horrific and immense void between us and the Creator God, and that only through profound violence of prayer might we overcome these things. And actually, life is terrifying, and you've actually got to face the present, which is also terrifying. Like, in the name of what, man? Like, why? Why on earth would you sell that to a 15-year-old kid?
That's way too heavy.
Their life.
That's way too heavy. I'd hate to sell something like that to people. That's just totally depressing.
And so, isn't your turn off from advertising? Isn't you're just it's the light?
No, don't turn off advertising until you've looked through advertising. I mean, you have to understand it.
Why?
So that it trains your perception on the environment as to what it is that's going on in everyone else's life, that you can get closer and understand them without you can close the gap to close such gaps.
Why? Why would I open myself up to that level of pain?
Oh, it's temporary. Come on, no pain, no gain. Because there is solid ground at the other end. Because there actually is, you actually can, we can share common ground. If you make the ground, and the ground is actually a really just simple material understanding of where the hell everyone is. Well, what you do is you have two people. People can't communicate and talk about other people directly. Two people are embodied creatures in the same environment, and you point something out. Hey, do you see that? Oh yeah, I didn't notice that. Now I see that too. People come together when they build a common perception, and you can do that at the human scale, and shit's gonna weave itself together. All right, so it's an autopoietic process, get people to talk about things that aren't themselves, or reflections of themselves, or their narcissistic self-image, or their, all the rest of the things which marketing and advertisements and culture, appeals to as a expediency towards getting the girl with the Nike shoes.
So you've read, you're one of the few people, Clinton, that have read Typhon in America and the guide to, and some of those pre-Mechanical Bride books. And one of so when we're talking about the value, right, we're talking about, here's another flash word, axiology, right, value, we're talking about what's the value. And I think the conclusion that McLuhan puts forward is that ultimately the pain of some form of wakeful state is ultimately less than the pain of some unconscious somnambulistic way of existing. It's kind of interesting that you see that's where he gets to. This is prior to where he arrives at like having something of a hermeneutics of joy. So, and I think this is like the impact of Joyce on his life, that he gets to maybe post 50s, where he moves from the sort of like, life is suffering, and you can either suffer in a legitimate way, or you can suffer in an escapist kind of way, and ultimately you should choose the lesser suffering, which is this sort of conscious wakefulness, right? And then later on he moves to this sort of stance where there's actually a joy to be found in exploration. Okay, and one wonders whether you have got to pass through the former to get to the latter. I don't really know, or whether you go through the latter to get back to the former. Which also seems to be the case, It's
Yeah, I think you put it precisely. I had thought of it the first way. Second way, of course. Who's for order? Again, they're both breadcrumbs. I don't know in which order they were dropped.
Andrew and Clinton, that was amazing because it evoked this book by Jeffrey Scott's Haunted Media, Electronic Presence from Telegraphy to Television. And in it describes a gentleman in New York City in 1953, the year I was born. He shot his TV because he thought it was talking to him with a gun. And so his wife reported it to the cops. The cops show up and said, there's no law about shooting your TV. He said, it's okay. They couldn't do anything. So this is what you two just discussed so brilliantly. What I have struggling with is when we do tetrad to explore these hidden psychic effects of our inventions like TV, I tell participants, don't focus on the intention of the invention. This is what Eric has said in his explanations of tetrad. We're not doing it on the intention of the inventor. And then we're not doing it on the medium itself. We're doing it on the environment itself. I mean, the environment. It's television creates an environment. And we're trying to figure out how it shapes our behavior. Why did they invent television? That, to me, is very difficult for people to do. Why? Why is it difficult? How can we get around it? How can we explore these hidden psychic effects?
I would assume this is just a very like oscilloscopes, right? Once you've invented the vacuum tube, look at all the crazy things you can do. Right, the television was obvious once you're trying to brainstorm all the ways that spraying electrons in various patterns could be interesting or useful. They're just trying to measure waveforms first. I mean, actually, that's another reason why I think studying the nitty-gritty engineering that I'm advocating for here, like how TVs work, is so that you can understand waveforms, which are an extremely amazingly fundamental part of basically every single technology. And you can see how sonar and radar and signal processing in your MRI and how the speakers work on computers all work, and how your strings on your guitar all obey these same basic properties. If you don't know how the technology works, you don't know the role waveforms is playing in all your technology, then they're all different technologies. When they're all different material manifestations of the same basic mathematical principles, and you see it in front of your face as a physical object, the job of orienting yourself in the world and in our massive artifice becomes that much simpler, right? It's a simple, easy compression thing. Oh, look, here's another machine that uses the same principle, right? But we don't teach people how their sound cards turn waveforms into, how a waveform is sampled at a certain rate into certain depth of bits, and then what goes on inside the computer. We don't teach them any of that. We complicate the world by not showing the similarities which transcend every single machine.
Hey, Gerry, it's a real cool question.
You go ahead.
Yeah, we need to talk about this one, because this whole notion of the inventor, the cult of the inventor entrepreneur is where we're at, right? Everybody's this great genius. It's the great man of art, the great genius has become this great inventor, this Elon Musk or this Jobs or somebody else figure. And it's really interesting. How do we deal with it? Like the causality. What is the causality of people inventing it? Why did they do it? So I guess if we're doing McLuhan 101 here, then we'd go, well, the audience is the formal cause of the creation. Right, so it's the audience. Everybody, we all created it. We created television, and we created television presumably, and we could look at this positively or negatively, through our needs, be they perceived or real at the time. So maybe it's something ecological. Maybe we invented television because we were pushed too hard over in terms of the linear visual connected world of the 17th century, something like this. Right, and so maybe humanity naturally sought to restore some ecological balance, and so there was a hunger for any sort of happening that would satisfy that and serve as a counterbalance to those drives of mechanization and specialization. Alternately, and possibly simultaneous with that, we might say, well, we had a deep need to continue to avoid some of the existential terrors that were evoked in the wake of mechanization. I mean, this picture up here, talks to some of the terrors. This little part of the triptych up here, right? It talks to the terrors of the printing press. And so naturally, we were seeking probably some solace from that. And so maybe this sort of, we wanted some of this electric sort of buzz stuff, and some flashing lights. And then once that's in motion, is just, well, everybody's a clever person. This person leads to that person, and the grand law of accidents just kicks into motion, by which things assemble and are energized through the medium of money.
Yeah, that was the perfect moment in this amazing session, because put in layperson terms, and you pointed at a harmonious Bosch painting. Is that correct?
Sorry, Gerry, I had a little trouble hearing you.
You pointed at a harmonious Bosch painting?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let me do a follow-up. Marshall asked a question, and you someone brought up the thing of putting technology to plural, technology. So we'll start with you, Andrew. I know me and have tackled this before, and I want to hear his take on this again. But here's the McLuhan question: could you put it into layperson's terms? How about technologies as the collective unconscious, and art as the collective unconsciousness? He didn't answer. He asked a question. What is he asking?
I can't offer you a quick answer on that one. Sorry, Gerry. I'd have to think about that.
Right, but what's the difference? Let me break it down. What's the difference between conscious and consciousness?
Is somebody conscious and is somebody unconscious? Again, we'd have to start pushing in. We either got to forge our own idiom in terms of how we're going to do it. We're going to dive in there and we're going to sort of stutter our way into some new way of understanding these terms, or we'd have to grab hold of these terms which have been at the center of debate for a couple of hundred years, and we'd have to end up picking a school and ending up at some sort of definition of them. And it's going to be real difficult. Like consciousness is it lands us right in the heart of some pretty interesting debates, whether it's something additive or whether it's actually, do we have all of the stuff plus consciousness on the top, or is consciousness something that is a reflection of the interplay, which I think is more of a McLuhan position. I don't really want to go there, Gerry. I reckon This is like the antithesis of 101. I reckon this is going to lead us way down some deep rabbit holes.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Because I'm always trying to figure out what's the difference between art and technology. Because
that's cool.
That's interesting. Yeah, we can. That's the other part of the question. We can just look at Duchamp said the artist of the future will only have to point. So you're a musician. You know that James Brown's drummer lived next to a factory. And he lived next to a train track. So he invented the funky drummer because this was his environment. Invented funk drumming because he was in the midst of the mechanism, but he turned it into music. And so is he more of a vehicle for the dominant technology, or is he creating self-expression?
Yeah, and McLuhan just makes it absolutely impossible if you actually try and read his work systematically and you try and go, well, is he talking about art here, or is he talking about technology? And he says technology is art and art is a technology, and then he'll talk about them separately. And so it becomes interesting how do we make sense of that? Like, I guess one of the positions that I've come to is that he's just teaching us how to read, right? In one sense, he's just going, hey, I'm just going to teach you how to read. I'm going to use a term this way. I'm going to use it that way. I'm going to expand it out. I'm going to smash it down. I'm going to show you how somebody else uses the word. And after that, you understand something about the nature of words and their various modalities. Art versus technology. I mean, another way of approaching it when he's talking about things is that you could say that McLuhan is just offering up the argument about good and bad art, the really Lewisian approach, right? Where he just says, well, technology, that's just bad art, and art is good art, right? And so in a certain sense, he just elongates that argument. And so, or then you could go back again and have a look at it and say, well, art. We take more of a Middle Ages view that, that which is, valuable as art was that which stilled the emotions and made us contemplative, right? Put us in a contemplative state, versus bad art that was going to stimulate us and our drives and make us curious or want to go and fuck people or something like that, right?
That was good. Clint, did you want to add? The question would be, like, what do you find strumming your guitar, Clint, as opposed to, Clint, what do you find pushing the buttons on your computer, because you're an artist? You know how and what push and create these amazing rooms. Is that your form of jam?
Lately, I've been thinking in the terms of Lewis, which are very haughty and judgmental and elitist. And that's, once art became a hobby, because rich people had tons of spare time and they went and learned to paint and produce a bunch of crap. Right, art as self-expression became validated just to move the market along. But to Lewis, that's not art. That's that you can be doing art therapy because you want to express yourself through art, but that's therapy. You're only helping yourself. You're not building up society and what McLuhan ended up eventually turning into revealing the nature of reality as a means to training people's perceptions as to what they're looking at or feeling, sensing right in front of their face, right? So yeah, if we're talking about art, only a very minuscule fraction of what gets called or understood as art qualifies if I'm trying to, in the context in which this question is being asked, as for you guys talking about Marshall McLuhan too much.
What about you, Gerry? How do you make sense of that distinction?
I think the way you word it, Andrew, is helpful for me to understand it's not narrowing down one way or another. It's doing what Pascal said, getting the big picture. So I would say that it's both. It's evident that it's both. That the human is the vehicle for the dominant culture, technology, and somehow the artist is touching on empathy from the viewer. And so that's where intention gets them in trouble, because my question followed up is that, can art make me egoless? 90% of my interviewees say no, and 10% say great art is egoless.
So is art?
It's difficult, but I think it's both. Go ahead.
Is art?
Go ahead, Andrew.
So what's the formulation of the question? Is, can art make people egoless, or is art made by people who are egoless? Was that I didn't get the.
The question is, can art make me be egoless?
Make you, as in me or you or somebody else, be egoless?
The person making the art, the creator, can they do it without ego?
Can you do art
without ego? And so this is interesting when people say that great art making is egoless. They're saying they touch some universality that a lot of people can relate to, but you don't say they like it or dislike it. It affects them. So my theory on great art is it fucks your shit up, and it makes you say, I could do that. So when I used to have Bob on the radio in LA, people would call up afterwards because we had follow-up meetings and what just happened. And they would call up and say, I know this guy's talking about something, but I don't know what it is. So that was the beauty, that it touched them. It kept them confused. So, in general, we live in a consumer society, and good art is the art that sells, and the other art doesn't. So it's all about clicks, how many views you get. So I think art is anything you can get away with. That's why Andy Warhol stole that line from Marx. I said it at a film screening for jazz films, and the guy said, that sounds like Trump. So art is just like the Balinese. It's whatever you do naturally, and you don't have intention. Like a kid. Do you throw out your kid's art, Andrew?
Yeah, quite a bit of it. I throw it.
How do you make a judgment? What one's the key? What guides your aesthetic?
My choice is pretty egoless. I've got a box and it fits a certain amount of stuff. And when that box is overflowed, no, I was thinking about that exact same thing the other day. It's actually is like, do you keep it? Do you not keep it? And working through that whole sort of criterion, I shelved it. To be fair, I ran out of time. I found it quite a confrontational question. I love my kids dearly, so it's hard.
Yeah, but it is also there's various factors, but we develop aesthetic. And is there such thing as bad art, like Clinton was saying? I mean, I'm not putting you on the spot, but who's to determine if art is anything you get away with?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely of the good and bad art school. It's somewhat hard to determine, and I don't know whether we should judge, but I think we can. There is always the possibility to judge, and in some instances we're required to judge, and yeah, even to the degree that we live in a time where such sludge and such flux is tolerated. I would be inclined to make a really sound argument in the other direction, just to force people to grapple with that in a way that wasn't monosyllabic, to actually craft an argument, and then I think that would be worthwhile. I think we can erect some of these old bastions of taste, because everybody's forgotten the arguments that saw them got pushed aside in the first place.
Well, Otto Rank and his artist sort of saw artists themselves becoming their own final medium. So now if everyone's a role player today on the global stage, people are art. They're making themselves in the form of a self-image, as far as being a brand, as far as wearing the right clothes. They're taking things out of their environment, and using themselves as a medium, right? The world is their palette. They're accruing, or they're picking up things from the environment and it's integrating into them. They have ownership, or they identify with it. So sometimes it's personal property. Sometimes it's just having a whole bunch of buttons on your bag to signal to other people, what your favorite TV shows are. But it's also your social media profile and, your routine of posting your shtick on social media at a regular basis to establish your identity, the image that other people are going to recognize you as. And I mean, without making a value judgment, there's lots of, it's a narcissism, which doesn't imply it's necessarily pathological or bad. Everyone's doing it. A lot of people are doing it just fine. They're going to be just fine, right? So if I was going to judge art, if I was going to create an axis of judging art, I'd say, what level of reality are they using as their palette in their own self-construction? Because when it's all digital and online, you're full of internet. But then when it's all real stuff in the flesh, I don't know, I'm sure some PETA activist who cares a lot about animals, I eat meat, which is why I'm saying this detachedly. If your thing is really caring about being a vegetarian for the sake of animals, and you're out there actually fighting for it, then you're living on a ground of reality, one stage lower down in your artistic self-creation project of being the level of reality that you want. So maybe if you wanted to grade art, you could look at it, how close to the ground are you?
Yeah, and I would say Clinton. Okay. I mean, to the degree that okay, so if we took a Lewisian sort of notion that art cannot be the content of anything else, right? So to the degree that all of everybody is the content of the one resonant node, what do we want to call it? The global theater, the global membrane, the global whatever is, right? Is there's a lot of people making stuff, people being also spoken through, right? Both voluntary and an involuntary way, to the degree that we're all acting out scripts that have been written well before we arrived on the scene, possibly by language itself, but possibly by various artists, poets, designers, programmers throughout the day, right? So in a certain sense, this glut of art reveals that there is very little in the way of actual art, right? And so maybe this is why McLuhan ends up with the situation is like, what do you do when there is no anti-environments, right? And basically ends up with a statement which everybody avoids, right? Is that we have to that ersatz anti-environments will do. Ersatz basically means sort of fake ones, right? So that the notion of the fake like these people, environmental. Marshall McLuhan, he said we need to be anti-environmental. Horseshit. At the end of his career, he said, "No, we can't have an anti-environment for the situation, or that the only environment is our anti-environment is our churches." And so, outside of these spiritual institutions, he's saying, "Well, you can't have an anti-environment, so we've just kind of got to have something else and say, well, this is going to be our anti-environment for the next 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or something like that. Let's use what should we use? Rock and roll, or Zappa, or Joyce, or some pretend thing, be it a high art, be it low art, be it lame art, be it good art. It's just like, let's just agree to have this sort of fake anti-environment for the brief second that it gives us."
Andrew, that was perfect. Because two of my friends are artists at this boardwalk homeless. 6 days after the Capitol event, I asked them, neither of them knew anything that happened. Did they have to know what happened at the Capitol? They're just sitting there taking the art. They're happy, and they have their problems, but they didn't have to know that. So they live in a secondhand world, but it's 6 days before somebody mentioned, and I'm all fired up because the news increased 40-50% because I'm like, oh my God. What do we do about this?
You might have ended up buying some new whiteware for your home, Gerry.
Real eye opener that people and so, I'm curious. We might want to wrap it up. I can go longer, but I was going to say, Frank Zappa said that. Say it again. Say it again.
Oh, sorry. No, I'd like to wrap it up soon, but go a few more minutes.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up. We'll do a final comment from everybody. Frank Zappa said, "Don't do speed. It will turn you into your parents." And then James Baldwin said, "Children have never been good at listening to their elders, but they never imitate them." So, we're caught up in this world of reproducing humans, and we're dealing with that's what most people only give them optimism. The healthiest cultural shifts are the youth. So communication of the new is a miracle, but not impossible. And you too have prove that McLuhanism is a truism. I learned a lot. I'm really grateful. You want to say any closing comments, Andrew, and I would appreciate it.
No, I don't have. I just hope everybody in the Northern Hemisphere is doing okay in these times. If my understanding of what is being faced by people, then these are strange times. Stay calm if you can, and
thank you.
Yeah, it's a I really hope that people make it out of this safely.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Andrew. Thank you. And Clint, thank you for facilitating. Go ahead.
It's a pleasure. It's an honor. Thanks for coming on my channel to have these great talks, making me a part of it. There is the little social fires and problems in my life are exploding exponentially, and on the day-to-day relation part, exactly over topics of imports on where everyone is living in a different shard of the image and just trying to spend way too much time trying to prove to the other person that they got the other facts, the other guy's wrong, or you got the cause and you're complaining it for the effect or whatever. But there's always, I mean, the amount of goodwill and earnest intentions and best of effort to people are in my life are communicating very well, very constructively, and with nothing but empathy and sympathy, despite the grounds beneath them seeming sometimes incommensurable. So it's very auspicious in that regard. I think continued communication is key, and everyone knows that. Which is nice.
Okay, I'll close out with the last question. Is there really that much difference in the history of humans on the Earth? It's always been up and down. And is there really a degree that, oh my God, it's a lot worse this year? I'll leave it as a question. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't know. Ecclesiastes, right? It's like there's nothing new under the sun.
No, Bob said that, is there nothing old under
Well, that's it. It's two-headed turtles all the way down. Good night, gentlemen, and good morning, Andrew.